All right, here we are, Angry Hipster, Real Talks. I don't know, I guess today, let's talk sports. How's your team doing? Well, my teams, let's see, Detroit Lions. I think, something, I think last year and the year before that was our year. I think we've kind of screwed that. I think, let's be real here, this team that we got right now, we aren't going to win the Super Bowl. Let's be honest here. And I know you're supposed to be a diehard fan, but at the end of the day, it's good to cheer your team on, but be realistic. The Lions aren't winning the Super Bowl this year. Sorry. Team's beat up. We're missing a lot of things that we needed. Our management likes to draft, but not buy buy anybody or trade for anybody that, to win now. So they're gone. I don't think that's going to happen. My Red Wings, let's see. I think they're doing pretty good. A lot of young stars, not stars, but we'll say stars in the making. I think they're shocking a lot of people. But something, if you look in the last few years, we've been in first a few times, and then after Christmas, we start to take a shit. Look at last year, I think we were doing great all the way until March, and then we took a shit. Year before that, I think it was roughly the same thing. So, but the thing is, are the Red Wings going to win the Stanley Cup? No. Let's be honest here. But I do think that this year, if they keep going and they keep learning, I think we actually do make the playoffs this year. My baseball team, we won. Dodgers won. So there's that. My favorite basketball team, I don't really watch basketball anymore because, something, every good play is some kind of traveling call or some kind of call that should have been called. You breathe on a superstar and you get a penalty. It's kind of become bullshit. I was a Lakers fan, and when I was a kid, I was a Bulls fan. Lakers, I don't know. Ever since I think LeBron's got there, it's kind of went shit. It just went down the hill. Like I said, I don't even think they're going to make the playoffs. But like I said, I don't watch basketball much anymore. But I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I know I do say a lot. That's because I'm new to this, and hopefully eventually I'll get all spunky and like everybody else, maybe have some music eventually and some other stuff like that. But for now, I'm just some average guy having an average conversation with whoever wants to talk sports. I want to hear, is your team doing good? Who's your team? What do you think? And that's the problem, I think, with sports is that there's a lot of people that are just delusional. Like I'm from Toronto, so something the Leafs, that fan base is the biggest, I think, delusional fan base there is. Every time they get a player, like we've heard it with goalies, especially, Tuskala, oh, he was coming, we were going to save the day. And then there was the monster a few seasons later. Then Matt Murray, oh, he was going to bring us to the promised land because he won 2 Stanley Cups. He wasn't bringing you nowhere. And what happened? Nothing. You let Mitch Marner walk. Something. I get that. You're missing him. But at the end of the day, I think the problem was those 3 guys were getting paid way too much money they don't got grit. And that's the problem. I hate the Chucks. Don't get me wrong. But something? They play with a little bit of grit. You know what I mean? You want to look at Hyman. Hyman will sit there and he'll hit. He'll go into the corner. He'll do things like that. You won't see Marner or Nylander do that. No. They're the type of people that just want to sit there and kind of, pass it to me and I'll score. But, you can't be delusional. You got to call out your people. You got to sit there. When your team is playing like shit, you got to call them out. I wouldn't say calling him out as crazy as my father. Like him and the Habs, he'll sit there and it's like he'll yell at them like it's like, bro, they can't hear you through the TV. And you don't even have to be in the room with him to know he's watching the game. And when the team's losing, because when he starts yelling at the TV, you know that his team is losing. You hear a lot of, Matheson, oh, you fucked up again, blah, blah, blah. It's like, and it's like, but then when you talk to him, he'll tell you how Matheson's great. You know what I mean? It's like, but you hated him. You were yelling about him a few days ago. No. And that's the problem, you know what I mean? He's just too emotional. And then there's people that are too delusional. You know, be happy for your team. Be happy when they win, you know? At any given game, your team can win, your team can lose. But the problem is when you start to get delusional, people start looking at you weird. You know, people start making fun of you. Why do you think Leaf fans get made fun of all the time? Because at the end of the day, they're very delusional. You know, they'll be like, "Oh, Matthew, how many times Matthews was better than this guy?" And this guy's like, "No, he's not." You know what I mean? I would say, you know, in the NHL, if you actually got down to who you would start a team with, he probably wouldn't even be in the top 10. No, you don't want to hear that, and you're like, "Oh, this guy's stupid." Oh, blah blah blah. Hey, think what you want. My opinion is, he's not. But you know, sports is a good thing though. It gives you something to do. It makes you bond with people. You know what I mean? Buddies get together. You sit there, you watch the game, or you watch it with your family, or you watch it with your girl, or your boyfriend, or your girlfriend, or your husband, or your wife, whoever, your kids. It's good. But like I said, shouldn't be biased about it. You shouldn't be delusional. If your team does good, it does good. If your team doesn't, straight up, hey, call it out. And I think that's the problem with Leafs. They sell out games no matter what because corporations own most of the seats. They don't even go. That's the sad part. I go to a lot of games even though I'm not a Leaf fan because I'm a hockey fan. And all the good seats are empty because the people didn't come. And it's tragic. I mean, not tragic, but it's like, wow, you know, real diehard hockey fans would love to be in those seats, but you can't buy them because they've been owned for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years and nobody goes to them. So that when corporations do that, it doesn't matter if your team sucks. Toronto could put out a team out there and it doesn't matter what. You know, it will sell out every game. Or not sell out every game, but at least be close to them. They'll have the fan base. And there'll be people still wanting to go. And there'll be lineups of people that would like to go if you don't want to go. And that's the facts. You know, you look at other teams like the Argos. They win. They're good, except for this year they sucked. But if you look in Toronto, they're the only team that honestly can win every year. Possibly. But yet their Toronto fans don't give a shit about them. Because Toronto is not really about, you know, they don't really like sports. They like the Leafs. You know what I mean? Look at the Jays. Nobody gave a shit about them until they started playing good and they got into the finals. Then everybody was diehard. We loved them. Where were you? Where were you the last few years when they were shit in the bag? Where were you? Same with the Raptors.